a lot of times people think about things in kind of an idealized way, but they're not really making a practice of it. And there's something to be said for the practice of things. And so for me, the actual practice of it, I really speak the things, I really say it. And I do that every day. I do it in a really consistent kind of way. There's something about that I think is really powerful. And, it's been life-changing for me.
Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy Podcast, where we explore the mystical, the magical, and all the ways we can bring enchantment into our everyday lives. Today, I am so thrilled to be joined by Ava Morgyn, author of haunting, gothic, witch-filled novels that are as beautiful as they are powerful. We're diving deep into her newest release, The Bane Witch, which also happens to be this month's Big Crystal Energy Book Club pick. In this conversation, we'll explore the dark magic and poisonous lineage at the heart of the book, the themes of rage, resilience, and reclaiming power, and we'll get to know Ava not just as a writer, but as a magical being herself. So if you've ever wondered what it means to wield your own kind of witchcraft in writing, in life, and in love, you are in the right place. So get ready to dive into The Bane Witch. Hi, I'm Ashleigh, and welcome to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. This is a place for the crystal curious, arcane-minded, and everything in the in-between. In this podcast, we will jump down the rabbit hole into the metaphysical, esoteric, occult, and spiritual realms. Nothing is off limits. I'm a mom, wife, an orthopedic physician assistant by day, and a seeker of all things spooky and kooky by night. I've spent my entire career in the medical field, but have always felt like there's more out there, and this is where we will explore together. We will have conversations with crystal healers, rock hounds, artists, musicians, spiritual coaches, magic makers, and anything woo-woo that strikes our fancy. Let's take our spiritual journey to the next level. So grab a crystal, pour a cup of tea. It's time to feel the big crystal energy. Hello, and welcome back to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. I am here with the queen, Miss Ava Morgyn, the author of The Bane Witch. Woo! And I asked her to come on because for the Big Crystal Energy Podcast, I'm doing quarterly book club, and she was gracious enough to come on and talk about the book that we're going to be discussing in the book club. So this is so exciting. I just get these ideas for things like at these downloads, and I'm like, oh my gosh, should I reach out to her? Do I have the confidence to do it? And then she was so sweet to say yes. So Ava, thank you so much for joining me. You are a true dream guest. I am the biggest book nerd. And when I found your book, the title, the cover, the whole thing, it just drew me in. And then, of course, the story is everything. So welcome, girl.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. So glad that you asked. And I love talking about my books with readers. I just love chatting with readers and people of like minds. So I'm excited.
Yes. So for listeners who may be new to your work, how do you usually describe yourself as an author and a creator?
I like to say darkly magical. I think that really fits what I do very well. And my content as well, because I really goes along with my work. But I write dark for sure. But there's always fantastical elements to my stories. So in my adult fiction, it's, characters who are witches in some capacity, have some magical power or prowess. And young adult is a little bit different, but there's always some kind of fantastical element going on there. So darkly magical is kind of my vibe.
Yes. And listeners, you have to follow Ava on Instagram. I don't know if you're on other social media platforms, but she always puts together the best reels. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, that just speaks to me. Your color, your aesthetic, just everything is just fantastic. You look like you have so much fun putting those things together. Yes. And so your books all have such a strong witchy gothic energy. Where did your love of the mystical and magical come from?
I mean, I think it's always been with me. When I was growing up, I was a kid like in the 80s, and there was a real slew of fantasy material coming out then. Movies mostly was what I was introduced to at that age. Like there was a lot of fantasy movies coming out in the 80s, and all of that had a pretty big influence on me. I was really drawn to that. And when I started reading, I pretty much right away was interested in fantasy fiction and dark fiction or spooky fiction of some kind, even as a pretty young kid. The first book I remember vividly falling in love with was a book called Howl a Day In, which was about dogs at a kennel who were like solving a murder mystery. So I was sort of right away interested in all things spooky, and all things paranormal and all things kind of magical and mystical. I was really drawn to like mythology, very obsessed with Greek mythology when I was a kid. And as I've grown up, it's just kind of stayed with me. I've just found more outlets for that and connected with more people who had similar interests, and it finds its way into kind of everything I do.
Wow, that's so interesting. I feel so similar to you in that all of this, I think, just started so much for me as a child, as with many things that we tend to gravitate toward even as adults. And I was listening to another podcast that you were interviewed on, and you said something about how you've always just been drawn to things that are dark. And I feel the same way. And I think what's sometimes hard for people to understand is that I'm not necessarily like this dark person. I just enjoy the darker side of life, but I'm still like a happy, joyful person. And I think sometimes people have a hard time understanding how those two things can go together. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I've had that same experience. Absolutely. It makes sense. Yeah, for sure. And I think like one of my earliest memories as a kid was the feeling of being scared or, engaging with something that was scary or spooky while simultaneously knowing that I was safe. And the way we feel when we watch horror movies, right? Or we read a scary novel, a gothic novel, a horror novel, a thriller, right? So I just very young, I have really formative memories of that feeling and loving that feeling right away, like very instantly, and wanting more of that and kind of gravitating towards those experiences. So I don't really know what that is, but that intersection is, but it's something that I've always really enjoyed. And like you, I'm not like I'm interested in dark things. I don't shy away from things, but I'm not like out there doing horrible things,
Yes.
But yeah, I think a lot of people feel that.
I think so too. Have you always worked as an author, or have you worked in other capacities in your life?
Well, I've definitely done a lot of different things. So I've always pursued writing as an adult, but it took me a long time. Like my road to publishing was kind of long and winding. So there were a lot of other things I was doing on the side in the meantime, just to kind of fill in those gaps in my career and bring in some money and, just keep up with the practicalities of life.
Sure. So since the focus of this episode is all about this amazing book called The Bane Witch, for listeners who haven't picked it up yet, and I have told them what date this episode will air, so I'm hoping that my listeners will have read it in advance. But if they have not and they're just tuning in, can you give us just like a brief summary of the book and like no major spoilers, please?
The Bane Witch is about my main character, Piers, who is trying to escape an abusive marriage, and in her flight reconnects with a sort of long-lost family member. She knows very little about her family of origin, and through that experience and connection begins to learn a lot of things about herself and her family that she never knew. And she is leaving a body count in her wake. So the stakes are high for Piers, for sure.
Yes, I just loved this novel so much because it's like my dream to have like this witchy relative that lives like in the forest, and I can just go and be with her and live this magical life. And of course, not the part about the abusive relationship, but just that idea of having that family lineage just sounds so incredibly desirable for me. But I think that in this story, you play with poison and power and witchcraft in such a unique way. What was your inspiration for this like Bane Witch lineage?
Well, I think a lot of my inspiration came from, the stories of women I knew like my whole life, friends and relatives, myself included, who have experienced some kind of violence against women. And it's so ubiquitous and so prolific that I think we really kind of lost touch with how bad it is. It's easy, I think, as women, we're really geared towards moving forward and doing what we have to do to keep going and taking care of our people. And so, we have these stories. Sometimes we share them, sometimes we don't, but we're just kind of marching on and keeping our head down and focusing on what we have to do. And we lose sight of how profound this problem really is still. And I think I just wanted to write a character who was championing all all women who've experienced this. And even I think for women who maybe haven't experienced some sort of violence or abuse against women, or maybe haven't experienced it to the degree Piers has, which is very extreme, there's a subconscious underlying fear of that. There's an understanding that we're vulnerable. And so I wanted to write a story and a character who could really champion those women and have a place to put some of my own anger around those stories and those experiences and the things that I've gone through myself or know people who've gone through, or even just seeing like documentaries and stuff on TV. And because magic is always kind of a part of what I write, and witches are a really so witchcraft in general, that is my personal path. That's a big part of my identity. I'm super drawn to the archetype of the witch in all of her many facets. And I love playing with that archetype in new and different ways. And I love plants as well. I'm fascinated by plants, and I'm fascinated by botany, and I'm fascinated by like plants in nutritional capacity, and then also in a toxic capacity, and the ways that amounts of things can really shift that. In the right amount, something is medicine, and in the wrong amount, it's poison. And so I just started kind of converging all those ideas together, and that's how I ended up with Bane Witch.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if, because your stories tend to have this, underlying witchy theme, if that was something that was personal to you, because I think sometimes when we see these underlying things with people in their books, we wonder if that is something that they really embody themselves. Because I think sometimes it could, if that is your personal path, then it's a little bit easier to write about it. And I feel very similar myself. And I think that the archetype of the witch is just, at this point, it can be so empowering. I think that it's brought me a lot of power to my life. And I think in your story, her discovering that side of her, it just really gives her that power. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Witchcraft has played a really significant role in my life. I mean, as somebody who was always drawn to magical and mystical things, I really found my way into sort of alternative spirituality pretty quickly. And, a lot of my early programming around culture and society and religion just didn't really take for me like maybe it does for other people. So it's played a significant role for me. I think the archetype of the witch is really important for women, because it's, when we talk about a witch, we're usually talking about a woman in her power, right? And we see that kind of split between being demonized and being idealized. We have a lot of figures from history that are villainous, evil witches, and, like Disney movies really come to mind for that. Or we're sort of demonizing the concept of a powerful woman, or a woman who is standing in her power. But I think we've done a lot of reclaiming as well. And now we're seeing a lot more characters, stories, movies that show a powerful woman as something positive. And I really kind of wanted to play with that in this book as well, like really kind of turning that on its head. And this old concept that we might have grown up with, where the prince is the hero and the witch is the villain. In my book, in The Bane Witch, the witch is the hero and the prince is the villain. That's part of why I gave Henry, who is Piers's abusive husband, a sort of British nobility backstory, was to tie in this kind of prince vibe a little bit. I mean, I didn't want to do that like super on the nose, but just play with that a little bit. But I think in general, the witch is a powerful archetype for helping women find and uncover and own and stand in their power again.
I totally love it. I just love the power that she gains and the confidence that she gains discovering her true path and her true calling. And yeah, it's a really empowering novel. I think even for people that don't necessarily follow witchcraft, it's really a cool story as to how someone can go from being so controlled by a man to just kind of going completely in the opposite way, and then just being this extremely powerful woman and stepping into her power. I think that is just a story that's really important for any woman.
Right. I agree. And I think most of my books, especially my adult novels, they really kind of follow this character arc of a woman really finding her power. And maybe each of my characters are starting in a little different place, and their journey looks a little different, and the challenges they face are a little different. But that's really at the core of all of it, is women finding their power. And in The Bane Witch, it's, she finds her own power and she learns to really defend herself, but she also becomes a protector of other women, which I think is beautiful and key, and something that probably speaks to a lot of readers, is how women can be protectors and supporters of each other.
I'm curious as to her name. I think the name Piers is really an interesting character name. And something about it. I'm just interested how you came up with that name, because it kind of has like almost this, to me, I don't know if this rings true for you, but it almost has like this masculine energy to the name.
It is really a boy's name traditionally. I chose it because I wanted to tie her name back into botany. In Piers's family, all the women are named after plants, essentially, but not in a way that was really obvious. I needed Piers herself not to understand what her name meant or where it came from until that was revealed to her at the right time. So it couldn't be something terribly on the nose like her mother's name, which is Lily, which is a very obvious plant name. And I was able to also kind of use the concept of her being given what is traditionally a boy's name to help kind of feed some of this backstory that she has, where she believes that her mother didn't want her because she was a girl. And of course, as you understand more about her family, you understand why that was kind of the case, but how that might have played into her psyche growing up and also left her with that feeling of not belonging and not being wanted and put her in a vulnerable place for somebody like her husband, Henry, a predator, to take advantage of her.
Yeah, I think that it's so interesting how you were able to weave so many of these different elements throughout the book. And you have this really very real botanical and poisonous lore within the story. What kind of research did you have to do for that? I'm interested to know how you kind of dove into that.
I mean, I got to do plant research. Most of my research for this book, I mean, any book, there's a lot of strange research you end up doing, like little detailed things you have to look up. And so there's a lot of stuff regionally and things like that I had to research. But most of the research I did was around plants and in particular poisonous plants, which was really fun and interesting to me. I like to pick premises for books that I know will involve research that I'll be interested in, because otherwise it's not a very fun process or project. So if it's, involves something that you're interested in, that is at least fun. And this was really fun, really interesting research. There are both way more poisonous plants than I realized, but also not as many as you might think. And they have varying degrees of toxicity. And, that kind of allowed me to play with sort of how these witches, their magic interacts with different plants and maybe what they can do with something that might not kill somebody outright, but maybe through them becomes fatal and things like that. So I had a lot of fun playing with all of that plant lore that I was able to look up. And I'm fascinated by fungi and mushrooms. And so getting to do some of the research with mushrooms was really fun. And then the setting was in the Adirondack Mountains in New York. And so while I was writing this, my son is actually a college student up there. So I was able to make several trips and ask him questions. He was like a biology botany major. So I was able to ask him about some things. And yeah, it was really fun. It's an amazing place. It's incredibly beautiful. I really fell in love with the area. If I could find a way to live there, I absolutely would do it. And it's a really special, magical place. So it was fun to set a story there, but it does have kind of an eerie feel to it sometimes. And so I really thought it was a perfect setting for this kind of dark cottagecore vibe that was going to happen,
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. I would love to visit that area. Any place that's like that is just like, it's got like this little piece of my soul. I'm always trying to drag my family around to go to all these different like magical witchy places. And I'm always like, okay, we're going to go here. And then maybe next time you guys can pick a trip to go somewhere where you like, because my kids are 8 and 3. So they don't really always understand all my choices. But I'm mom. So my husband goes along with all my crazy ideas. So I would say like one of the strongest themes in your book is all about like this female rage and reclaiming power. Why do you think those themes are resonating so strongly right now?
Well, I mean, I think women who really value their independence and really value their power, who really come back to knowing their worth. And I think women like that are very aware of the imbalance of power that still exists in our culture and society. And of course, we see that pendulum trying to swing backwards from the bit of progress we had made. And so I think this resonates for a lot of women right now who are feeling safe, unheard, unseen, unvalued, and, they're angry. I mean, I think really if any one of us sat down long enough to think about the things we've endured or that our mothers endured or that our friends have endured, and if we give ourselves some time to really sit with it, we all feel mad. I think we're all angry, but we know how to kind of push that aside and go on with our lives and make the best of things. But I think there is a very real, very valid, very angry place inside of really, I think, every woman. But I don't know that they're all very honest with themselves about it. And that is a part of us that's been traditionally maligned, not appreciated. We're really asked to repress or suppress our anger. And so I think it's something that deserves an outlet and a stage. And that's kind of what this book was for me. Like, it was very cathartic for me to write. I really just got to let a lot of things out. And I was hopeful that it would be like that for readers, that they would have that experience reading it.
Yeah. I mean, right now, this is like an intensely crazy time because we think that we've made so much progress, and now we turn on the news every day and we just see things shifting backwards at such a rapid rate that it's hard to even, I think for me, it's hard sometimes to even wrap my head around it, because I think, well, how far back over the next few years are we even going to be more than we are today? And so when I read stories that give me that sense of empowerment, I feel like there's still things that I can do. I'm still not going to lose all of my power. I'm not going to lose all of my control. There are a lot of things going on in the world, but we still need to stand strong in who we are as women. So, I mean, I think the story really just it speaks to a lot of that. Yeah. So when you sit down to write, do you have any kind of ritual that you do, or do you just sit at your computer and start going, or do you have any little thing that you do to get in the right headspace?
I do have some really specific requirements. I mean, my writing days start out often very much the same. I get up, I do a few little things for myself. I have a dog who sheds really bad. Hopefully you can't see all the dog hair like that behind me, but I have to clean the floor. I have to vacuum every day because I can't, the way I say it is I can't think through all that hair. I can't sit and think and just like see all that dog hair around me. So I have to do like that basic cleanup and kind of get myself situated. And then I sit down with my work to start. And I usually start by rereading what I wrote the day before, or maybe even a couple of days before. And as I'm rereading, I'm making edits to that. And then I move into what comes next. And I start writing the next scene, the next chapter, however you want to describe it. I really need quiet to write, and I really ideally need to be alone. So I don't like to write when other people are here, which means I almost never write on the weekend, like when my husband's home from work. And I'm not one of those people who gets to like go to the coffee shop and write. That's not a thing that works out for me very often. I just can't have a lot of distractions, and I have to be comfortable. So I have to be dressed very comfortably. I have to be seated in a way that's very comfortable. I have to make sure I have like water by me and things like that. And then I think it's just that I have fewer things to get distracted by. And then I can really start working. And then it just sort of depends. There are days that are really flowy and good. And it just really comes out in a stream of consciousness kind of, and it's great. And there are days that are harder and it's just not coming easy. And I usually take a lot of little breaks on those days. I may even stop. I might just put my computer down for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. And then I pick it up again. And then I write a little bit more, and it's just like, how much more can I get out? How much more can I get out? And it's kind of a start and stop. So it just varies, and it's hard to say. I never quite know why or when it's going to go really smooth and when it's going to be harder. But the thing I've learned over the years is you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? Just write the next sentence, you write the next paragraph, you write the next page. Eventually it will be a book. If you keep going.
Yes.
And so that's what I do.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. For me, it's so hard when I feel like to do anything creative. It's hard if my space around me is not at least sort of clean and organized. So I can understand why that would be number one. My dog sheds so much too. I'm like, this morning I'm vacuuming everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, doesn't anyone else in this house see all this dog hair? I guess it doesn't bother anybody else except me. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have something you need to hear. Have you been feeling a shift, a pull towards something more? Whether you're manifesting new opportunities, confidence, or a major glow up, the universe is listening, and I've got just the thing. In a crystal clarity call, I'll intuitively select 3 crystals to support your manifestations, pull a tarot or oracle card for deeper guidance, and craft custom journal prompts to help you take action. It's more than a reading, it's an energetic roadmap. So if you're ready to align with your highest self DM me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash for details and pricing. Let's bring your magic to life. What type of dog do you have?
So I have two dogs. I have Siberian Husky, and he has what's called a woolly coat, or he's a woolly husky. So his fur is extra long and extra thick, which makes no sense for where we live. We live in Texas. It's very hot here. We got him at a shelter. I don't know who got him originally or where they got him from, but he mostly has to spend his time inside, especially in the summer, because his coat is just too thick to deal with our heat very much. And then I have another dog who's part pit and part husky, and she at least has a smooth coat. It's a lot easier to deal with, but yeah.
Well, I just asked because I have a lot of animal dog lovers as listeners, and we're all about animal rescue over here. So I love to hear that. That makes me so happy. But it sounds like there's just a lot of upkeep with your poor pup. I mean, in the Texas heat, having all that hair must be very uncomfortable. What would you say your favorite part of writing your kind of gothy witchy fiction is? Do you enjoy the research? Do you like setting the atmosphere? Do you like the characters? Or do you just like enjoy the whole process?
I love the research. I mean, once in a while the research is annoying, but most of the research I enjoy. I really love setting the tone, in my writing, like the mood, like depending on where I've set the story. I really love adding in these details that I feel like really feed into the tone and the mood of the book. Mm-hmm. I enjoy fleshing out my characters and, thinking about their little idiosyncrasies and trying to make them as real as I can for my readers. And I really enjoy the settings. It's like when I wrote The Bane Witch, I was thinking, I get to spend all this time in the Adirondacks, even though I don't really live there. But like while I'm writing, I'm sort of there in my mind. So choosing where I set my books is really important for me because it's a place I spend a lot of my time while I'm writing, basically, not physically, but mentally. And I always think I want it to be readers will want to go. And how can I make this like a really fun escape for them,
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the act of writing is magic?
Absolutely. I used to work, it's kind of a funny story, but I used to work at a metaphysical bookstore. This was many years ago. And I did that for a long time. And they were such wonderful people. But we would have different readers and authors. They sold like books that had to do with metaphysical things, spirituality, and then gifts also. And so there's like a lot of crystals and fountains and like tingly wind chimes. And it was a really lovely place to spend your days. But we had a guy come one time and he was a well-known channeler and he had written several books on channeling and he would do these like channeled readings for people. And I got there. I was the person opening up that day. So I was there when he arrived and let him into the store so he could go get set up. And he was really nice. He was asking me some questions. And somehow it came up that I was a writer. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, so you're like me." And then he said, "All writing is channeled." And I just thought that was really interesting. That's kind of always stayed with me. I feel like it's such an apt description for what the process feels like. There is something of us in the best, but there is also something beyond us that's kind of hard to describe or explain. And to me, there's something very alchemical about that experience. And so, yeah, to me, I think writing is absolutely magical.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like once I really started exploring, I would say the magical side of my personality and really tapping into it, I feel, and I don't really know how to explain it, but I just feel like so much stuff is always like I have so much stuff coming in. I call them downloads and it wakes me up in the night. It's just like this constant process. And it's so interesting because before I really opened up this part of myself, I never really had that. And now I just am like this constant influx of ideas. And then that was kind of part of the reason what led me to create the podcast, because I had so much and it was just like, well, what am I going to do with all of this? I have so many people that I want to talk to and I have so many books that I want to read and I have so much that I want to share. And, it all comes in. And then it's just so nice to be able to like, I'm not a writer, but it's nice to be able to like share that information and like push it out in some kind of way. And I don't really know. I'm kind of in the process of trying to figure out what my exact magic is, but like, I feel something.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely relate to that. That's a really similar experience for me. I think I had downloads and intuitive experiences and spiritual experiences early on, but I didn't have vocabulary for what I was experiencing. And I didn't know other people around me who had any of that. So it was a journey to get to a place that I could start to understand what I was going through and have words for that and be able, and then like connect with other people who were similar. And that was so validating and lovely. And now to be in a place where it's very free, I don't feel fearful about it. I'm not worried. Now I feel just very open, and I have a wonderful community of people, readers and friends and other people who feel similarly, and we all enjoy that energy together, and it's really nice. But I know that experience for sure.
Where you live, do you have a lot of community that's physically near you, or do you feel like you connect with a lot of people? Probably you connect with people from all over the world that read your books. I mean, because I know for me, it's just like the community, like the actual community locally is very challenging, but it's been okay because I've been able to open myself up, internationally even, and make communication and friends. And that's okay too, just because, I mean, I'm busy. I work a full-time job outside of this, and I don't necessarily have time on the day-to-day, but I'm just curious what your community looks like.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the Houston area of Texas, which is a really big metropolitan area. And so there's an enormous assortment of people here, and there's a lot of diversity in all ways. I mean, it is Texas. I am as sort of a conservative place ultimately, but I've never really felt too hampered by that. I've never had too hard of a problem finding my people in the context of where I am. Because it is just such a big place, there's a lot of people, it's very densely populated. And so there's always someone somewhere, and I've been pretty good at looking for places and putting myself out there and going to things and finding people to connect with. And that's kind of, changed shape over the years. And now I mostly have like a small circle of friends that I'm close with who have similar beliefs and practices, and we share that together. And of course, my family, both of my daughters and I practice together, and my son even as well. And so I have it more just kind of built in now. I'm not necessarily out there looking for a bigger group at this time or anything, but I have had that experience and been able to be a part of some bigger groups in the past, and public rituals and things like that, different festivals and things that you can go to here. There's a lot available, I think, just because it's a big area with a big mix of people. And so that's really, I think if I lived in a smaller town in Texas, it'd probably be a little different and a little more challenging. But, I would find my people somewhere. We know each other.
Well, we do. We find our people. Yeah, we find our people. I think that's beautiful that you're able to practice with your family. I mean, my kids are very small. My 3-year-old he's a very magical child. He's very in tune with the moon and just all these things. And that, I mean, I know the way that I am, but I believe that it really comes from inside of him, because he's just really very naturally drawn to these things. And he'll see something and he'll be like, that's a potion. And that's this, and I'm like, you're like 3. How do you even know these words? And it's so precious. So I think that's really beautiful that you're able to practice with your family. My husband, he's just along for the ride. I think my husband really just likes to, he just likes to be like, he likes to have the tradition of a regular church, just because he likes that tradition of like taking time out of his week to set aside an hour to go to a physical place, to get away from his day-to-day routine, to just be thankful. But I don't think it's necessarily that he follows that particular thing. And, but I mean, he's very open to my practice and is happy to join along and things. But I mean, I'm just interested to see how it evolves over the years, because I think that having your family involved is really special.
It's nice. I mean, my kids are grown now, so we've been doing this practice magic together as a family for many years. I started pretty early with them because I wanted to share what I was experiencing and excited about with them. And my husband has always been, he has his own beliefs. I don't know, he's kind of a tough nut to crack, or kind of hard to describe, but he's always been open to me doing and being who I need to be. I mean, he has to be. Like, that's just the bottom line. Like, I'm going to be me and you can be you, but,
That's right.
I'm going to be me. And so
That's right.
He's definitely joined in on some things and participated in some things, but we're very respectful of each other's spiritual space. You know what I mean? I think that's a thing we've brought to the table for each other is like, we hold space for each other when we can, but we let each other do what the other person, needs to do in that capacity. I mean, I think spirituality and spiritual practice, however you slice it, is very personal, and that needs to be respected for everyone.
Yeah. I completely agree. So do you have any upcoming projects or anything fun that you're working on right now?
I do. Okay, so Only Spell Deep, of course, comes out in March, but I'm technically through with that. Like, we've done it. I wrote it. They have it, and we've done most of the edits. There'll probably be might be a couple more little things they come to me about, but for the most part, it's off on its publishing journey. And, this is the situation they put me in all the time where things happen and I'm not allowed to talk about them for a really long time. So I don't know how much I'm really allowed to say, but here's what I will say. I am working on another book. I just finished drafting it this past week. And so that's the very first, very rough draft. It will need to be revised. Thank you. Before I can turn it in. But I had so much fun with this one. And I'm it's my Swamp Witch book. I really wanted to do sort of a swampy setting. I mean, I'm from Gulf. No, so it's like this part of Texas, East Texas and Louisiana. There's so much wetlands around here. It's just really something I've always grown up with, and that, I just have always had a special place for it in my heart. And so I really wanted that kind of setting for this book. And I was so excited to do it. And it, of course, is another witch story, but again, very different from what I've written before. The magic these witches wield their magic system is entirely different from the magic systems I wrote in the Bane Witch and in the Witches of Bone Hill. And I love getting to do that, getting to explore different ways in which magic might be happening for these characters. And there's always a feminist slant to my work, so that's definitely true in this as well. And of course, there's always dark themes, and that's true in this as well. But I think it's going to be really fun for readers, and I think it's going to be really touching for readers. Like, there's something about the relationships and between the characters in this book that were really touching and really got me right in my heart. So I feel like readers are going to respond to that as well.
Well, I can't wait. That sounds amazing. I still need to catch up on your other novels because oh my gosh, I'm taking a trip to Salem next week for a retreat, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to pack The Witches of Bone Hill for my reading because I'm traveling across the country, so there's going to be a lot of time flying and reading in peace and silence without my family, which sounds like an absolute dream.
That'll be a fun one to read in Salem, for sure.
Yeah. As a parent, like, traveling without children is such a treat. It doesn't happen very often. And when it does, I just take full advantage. I pack way too many books. Yeah. And I just enjoy it because most of the time our family travels with both the kids, and I don't get to read more than like 3 pages on the entire trip. And so I'm just excited to dive in and read more from you, because you also have YA books too, right?
2 YA books out. Those came out before The Witches of Bone Hill. YA is actually what I wrote for the longest time and was really trying to break into for so long. And then it was my agent who came to me and said, would you be interested in writing an adult novel? Which, when people had asked me before, my instant answer had always been no. But then she said about witches, and I was like, say, what was that? So I very quickly was like, yeah, let me cook something up and direct. Yeah. And that took off, and that's what became The Witches of Bone Hill. And I ended up loving it so much. And now I don't want to stop writing adult. I'm like having so much fun with it. But my YA books are also darkly magical for sure. I don't think they don't deal with witches in as specific a way, but there are very witchy characters. Like, you will absolutely recognize it, and they do deal with magic and kind of paranormal experiences. And so, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to check those out as well. So, do you have a way that you personally infuse every day with magic?
I will tell you what I do every day, which is my little daily magical practice, is I have a morning gratitude practice where first of all, I spend my morning in my garden, which is the place I feel really fed and nourished and magical. And I out loud say all the things I'm grateful for from the day before, maybe even from the past few days. Then I set my intention for the day I'm starting. And I always phrase that as I would love, fill it blank. So, I would love for today to be really productive, or I would love, whatever that happens to be. But that's really my daily magical practice. And it's really important to me. I lost a child 8 years ago now, and that's a really, really devastating experience. And I had to restore my relationship to gratitude, which took a lot of time and a lot of years. And then once I did that, really holding that space each day is so, so important for how I set my mind up to move through the day. If I wasn't actively doing those things and holding positive, joyful space for myself, I don't know how I would do it. I really don't. It's not an easy experience to come back from at all. So that's been a huge role that I keep myself going, essentially, and continue to build a life that I can live in and love and feel pleasure in and enjoy, and a life that I think my daughter would be very proud of.
I think it's just, I think that coming back from something like that is just something that as a parent, I can't even like fathom that. And so to find that place and then to just try to have that moment every day of like cultivating joy and just being happy for the things that you have and the things that you're grateful for. I know it's been hugely instrumental in my life. It's literally changed everything. Just feeling like thankful and like thinking about the way that I just want to show up every day in my world. It changes everything. It changes the energy that I have with the people around me. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't really think about that. So I'm already tearful thinking
I don't know how many people. It's out there for people to do, but it is, that's the thing about a practice is you have to really do it every day. It has to be regular, it has to be consistent, and you have to, there's action involved. And so it's a lot of times people think about things in kind of an idealized way, but they're not really making a practice of it. And there's something to be said for the practice of things. And so for me, the actual practice of it, I really speak the things, I really say it. And I do that every day. I do it in a really consistent kind of way. There's something about that I think is really powerful. And, it's been life-changing for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I'm a crystal girly. Do you have any crystals that you like, or do you have a favorite stone?
I do. So, when I used to, many moons ago in my previous life, when I worked at the Metaphysical Bookstore, I also taught classes there on crystal healing and crystal reading. And I did readings for them. And I did crystal readings, and I also did tarot readings. I actually developed my own system of crystal reading. So I was kind of the crystal girly at the store. I was sort of the person everybody came to with those questions. So crystals were a really big part of my life at that time. And I still have them around, and they still matter to me. It's taken a little bit of a backseat since my life has shifted so much. But my favorite crystal, so what I call it is my crystal familiar. I believe in the concept of crystal familiars, which is, we talk about witches having familiars and their animals or their whatever. But I think you can also have mineral familiars. They don't have to be animals. You can have vegetal familiars. Who says they have to be animals? They can be plants. And so I think it's, anything that you really connect with in a strong way, whose energy is really valuable to you and to your practice. And so my crystal familiar is carnelian. It just does so much for me creatively, energetically, and I have a love having it around. And yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorites. I talk about carnelian on my podcast all the time. It's interesting too, because for me, that the color of carnelian is not really something that I'm always particularly drawn to, but the energy of the stone is something that I'm always like, I always want to carry it on me. I always take it to work. I have it on my desk. If I'm in a crystal shop, I always end up buying some tumbled carnelian or something. So I can totally understand that draw.
Yeah, it's a good one. I would say a good one for sure. And it's, so readily available.
Yeah, I have a stone here that's on my desk that's celestite. I think that's probably this particular stone, I think, would be my crystal familiar, just because it's a particular, just this piece has been something that's been very helpful in my journey in the past few years. And something about it I just feel very attracted to. So thank you for sharing your crystal. And I love to see, I could tell that you were crystal girly, even though you're not super obvious about it at this time. I can just feel it.
This is a whole bowl of crystal of quartz points that we went and mined ourselves in Arkansas. So yeah, I have an obnoxious amount of crystals around.
Oh my gosh, that is one of my dreams. I want to go to Arkansas so bad and do that. That sounds so fun.
It's fun.
I want a giant obnoxious bowl of crystals like that I mine. That's so neat. I mean, and I love giving them out as gifts. I love finding ones that I think that will resonate with someone, even if they're not really a crystal person. I think getting something like that as a gift is just kind of nice and special, and it's not, most people just give whatever, and I love giving crystals.
I agree. One of the things I used to talk about in that class was that whether people really believe in crystal healing on a conscious level or not, everybody responds to crystals positively. We all think they're beautiful. We all think they're interesting. We all think they have value. Like, it's a universal experience. And so I think there's something there we're all responding to. And I think people, whether they're really into it in that same way or not, they still enjoy them.
Yes, I fully agree. I totally agree with that. I mean, there's nothing, to me, it's like there's nothing really negative about them. To me, they only can bring like a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of joy. And so whether or not you think it's hokey or whether or not you believe in it, it's still nice. So, okay. So where can listeners find you online and follow along with your work?
Website, avamorgyn.com, AVAMORGYN.com. And also I'm on Instagram. Instagram is probably my most utilized platform. I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Threads. But if you follow me in more than one place, you'll notice there's a lot of cross-posting. I really create most of my content for Instagram and with Instagram in mind. And that's usually where things are getting posted first. And there are some things I post on Instagram that don't get posted anywhere else. That's really the best place to find me is Instagram. And on my website, I have a newsletter you can subscribe to through my website. If you do that, like if you subscribe right now, you get access to the full first chapter of Only Spell Deep for free and to an excerpt of the Bane Witch for free. So there's always perks involved. I send out a quarterly newsletter, so I really only send it out 4 times a year. And then with a few extra little ones in between, like for if something is just being released and I want to remind people or whatever. But I try not to abuse the privilege of having your email address. And that's definitely a good place to be if you're really interested in my work, because my newsletter subscribers are getting access to things before anybody else. And sometimes they're getting access to things that nobody else is getting. They get excerpts, they get deleted scenes, they get, behind the scenes peeks at stuff like how the cover art was developed and things like that I'm not putting out anywhere else. And they usually get a lot of the announcements before anybody else does. Like in my last newsletter, I already let my subscribers know about the book I'm working on, right? So they're getting sneak peeks of things and exclusive content that isn't going anywhere else. And it's a nice way for me to kind of make sure that the people who are most interested are really getting being able to stay on top of what's going on in my world. And I always try to put stuff in that I think people will enjoy. So I include recipes in there sometimes. I include spells in there sometimes of my own. I have a part of my newsletter called 3 Witchy Things, where I always include like 3 things that they might want to shop or read or buy or listen to or whatever that are like witchy and fun and cool. So those are kind of the top 3: my website, my newsletter, and Instagram.
All right, I got to get on that newsletter situation immediately. I'm making a note to sign up for that right away because that sounds amazing. That sounds so fun. Say no more. I need that in my life. So, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so glad that we had the chance to chat. I can't wait for my listeners to connect with your books. I can't wait for myself to read more of your stuff and your new projects. It's just been a total dream.
Thanks for having me. I was delighted to be here. It was so fun to chat with you. I love meeting readers and I love getting to talk books and spooky things and witchy things. And so this was a perfect afternoon for me. And yeah, I'm just really grateful.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And readers, if you have not checked out The Bane Witch, say no more. You have to check it out right now because it's awesome, or any of her books. So thank you again, Ava. Have a beautiful day.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
That was such a soul-stirring conversation with Ava Morgyn. I hope you're leaving this episode just as enchanted as I am. We had a lot of technical difficulties throughout the interview, so I am just fingers crossed that my podcast editing team is able to make the interview sound seamless. And thank you to Ava for being so patient with the process. But don't forget, The Bane Witch is our current Big Crystal Energy book club pick, so grab your copy if you haven't yet and join the discussion with me and the rest of our crystal-loving community. You can find Ava online at Ava Morgyn. I think that's the name of her website, her Instagram. I'll link all the things in the show notes. And be sure to check out her other spellbinding books, including Resurrection Girls, The Salt in Our Blood, and The Witches of Bone Hill. As always, thank you for tuning in. If this episode sparked something magical in you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or tag me on Instagram so I can see your favorite takeaways. Until next time, stay witchy, stay magical, and keep bringing the big crystal energy into your everyday life. Bye! Thank you so much for jumping down the rabbit hole with me. If you connected with this episode in any way, I would love it if you could share it with a friend. Also, please tag me on social media. I'm at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast, mostly on Instagram. It helps so much getting my episodes out there and finding more magical, kooky, and spooky friends. Sending you all big crystal energy. Cheers!